Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Karin McCarthy, founder of Vermont Collaborative Circle and host of the Pivot and Thrive community for Vermont business owners. We come together to make better informed decisions about running a business in Vermont, and I'm so excited that you're here to join us today for this workshop. We offer networking, showcase, learning, and market opportunities, and it's just been such a joy to collaborate and to help each other grow. So thank you for sharing this time with us. We are recording today, so you're welcome to have your photo or your video on, but if you think there's going to be a distraction behind you, just keep that in mind and maybe switch to a photo. And we're coming together today on Abenaki land. I want to recognize the Abenaki Nation as the past, present, and future caretakers of the Dawn Land, Vermont, a space that we love and that we want to see taken care of into the future and that we care to care for now and into the future. We are coming together today to learn about search marketing and SEO, and I know that this is a topic that there is so much to learn about, and I hope that you will take the opportunity during our workshop to take a screenshot and share it in your social media channels. And if you tag Erika and Vermont Collaborative Circle, we'll drop our Instagram handles in the chat. But if you tag us, we'll share your post and help you leverage and extend your audience as we share your posts as well. So we'd love to know what resonates with you, what you're curious about, and help you to expand your audience at the same time. Without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, Erika. I'm so excited to have you here. Erika Austin worked as a digital marketing pro for 11 years at one of Vermont's fastest growing companies, OnLogic, formerly known as Logic Supply. She wrote an article for Moz.com last year about brands' transition strategy for SEO, and she's been speaking at local colleges, Champlain College and CCV, for nearly a decade to empower the next generation of marketers. She is a member of our Pivot and Thrive community, and she also supports the local Maverick market with their digital market space, in addition to supporting other small businesses in Vermont in her own consulting work. So thank you so much for joining us, Erika. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen real quick. And let's see here. Can everybody see my screen now? We good?
Yes, we see it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yes, I am Erika Austin. I work in digital marketing, and my business name is just that, Erika Austin Digital Marketing. And working with different businesses, as Karin mentioned, small businesses, Vermont businesses, just looking to empower the community with what I know and expertise I have in this area. So I also like to just kind of kick it off of like, what is search marketing? What is SEO? SEO stands for search engine optimization. So it's the constant process of optimizing, putting something out there and then evaluating and seeing how did that work? What can I learn from this? How does this compare to other things that I've done? That's the optimization fun, is constantly iterating and learning from what you're doing. And I also just like to preface too, is that search engine optimization is search has intent. So people are asking questions on Google and looking for answers. So that is usually, in terms of sales funnel, a very, very great spot for you to be in, is being able to solve somebody's problem as they're having it, versus some of the other marketing tactics like social. You're trying to distract them from a platform that they're on and try and grab their attention. So search can just really be a helpful tool to be able to attract people who are trying to address a problem that your product can solve. Let's see. So next, this is a very common term in SEO, which is EAT. It stands for expertise, authority, and trust. So these are the most important factors when it comes to SEO. I'll explain what these are, but I like to elaborate and call it create instead of eat, and focusing more on content, relevance, expertise, authority, and trust, still very important, and then earned. How are you earning this audience? So just wanted to say that I'm going to expand upon the EAT principles. So let's start with content. Content is key. That is how you are building people to come to your website. So if you have a website and you have a page that speaks to a specific search query, that is where you're going to just be able to add more opportunities to be found. So it helps to have a consistent like key phrase of what you're trying to optimize for as you're creating this content. But try and answer those questions in different contexts and build that out into longer tail search queries. And please, Karin, too, feel free to call me out if I am saying too much jargon. If I say a word that no one understands, please just call me on it. So yes, this is content that you're providing is increasing the chances that you have to be found. Think about your purpose. What challenges are you solving? What stories do you want to tell? How do you work your narrative into that conversation? Be unique about your approach, right? For a specific purpose. If you are just replicating content from somebody else, you're not really doing anybody any favors. There's a thing called duplicate content, which is why I threw this little panda in here. Google has updated their algorithms. This is probably 10 years ago. And Panda was a really big topic at the time because Panda was essentially trying to eliminate the duplicate content. So when somebody's reselling somebody else's product and they copy all of their product descriptions, that can actually be somewhat damaging to you. And then Google says, hey, there's all these versions. Which one should I index? They're going to take the one that was the original content. So it can be very helpful to create your own unique content with your brand voice. And I just say, look for opportunities of content to write. Don't cheat, plagiarize, shortcuts. A lot of those things can come back to hurt you in the end. I also just threw in here too is trends.google.com. If you wanted to look up what are some of the search trends relatively in my market, is that growing or shrinking? What does that look like during COVID times? This can be a great tool for you to just see what are the search trends in my area. Place to start. So then next, the R and E, relevance and expertise. So again, thinking through what are the challenges that you're trying to solve, and thinking about what are the questions that people have. Yes, you might provide a product or service, but what are the things that people are looking for before they need that? You know, what are the things that may be during their research before they reach you and realize, yes, this is what I need to offer, or this is what I want. So addressing those queries and thinking about how are you addressing these pain points? How are you addressing your personas? If anybody's familiar with personas, it's sort of a fictional representation of your audience. So you can speak to someone and address them of what is their concerns, what are their pain points, and how does your content educate and provide value. So be unique when you're writing content, write for relevance, and write with expertise. That's what I also love about talking with all these small business owners, is that everyone has so much expertise and can totally nerd out in like their area of expertise in their market. And that's the kind of thing that's just so rich in content. I'd actually even just encourage you to like record on your phone. Somebody asks you a very simple question about what do you do? How do you do it? Record yourself talking about it, and then that can be a way that you can start thinking about your content strategies as well. Because again, I just learn so much more from people than I could ever do research on, because you guys live this industry. So you have a lot of content in your noggin already. So it's a great way to just be able to speak to your expertise. And then I threw a screenshot in here. It's called answerthepublic.com. It's a website where, again, just throwing in a keyword. In this, I said shop local, and it breaks out into different search queries of what, where, why, how. What are those questions that people are looking for that can help support that keyword? Again, breaking into, yes, I want everybody to shop local. That's my goal. But maybe it takes some convincing to get there. Maybe they're doing some research before that. So what are some of the longer tail queries and questions that people might have before they reach that topic? So this can, again, help with that ideation of saying, okay, how can I add to this conversation? How can I answer these questions that people in my market have? So this is just another tool to use for developing that relevance and expertise in your market. It's free, so that's nice too. So building authority. This is a little quiz part that I throw in here. Does anyone know the original name before Google became Google? What was the name that the project that Larry Page and Sergey Brin created? It became Google. Anybody have any guesses? It's going to surprise you. Backrub. So
that is surprising.
Right? What? Yeah, it doesn't have the same ring as Google. Like Google has become a verb. Let's Google it. Let's backrub it. It doesn't work as well. Yeah, so the name of the project that they had created before it became Google was called Backrub. And the idea behind Backrub was that a website's authority was based on the links that were given to it. So this is, if you think back early internet days, you had all of these links that would connect, and there would be like a link ring of people. That was kind of the idea, is that you can speak very authoritatively, but once other people are linking to you, then it can help build that expertise and authority in that space. So I share all of this too, because I think it paints a pretty good picture too of this Vermont Collaborative Circle and what you guys are doing of let's help each other out. Let's rub each other's backs. How do we collaborate? How do we work together in this? How do we complement each other? Thinking about that as a way to build up your backlinks. That's what Backrub turned into, backlinks, which is links to your website that build your authority. So it's not only just, I have some people who say, like, look at their referral traffic very intently, and they're like, well, I didn't get any traffic from this website that I got put on. Yeah, well, don't necessarily just focus on the immediate return of the traffic of the website that you're on. It also can help with your longer term backlink strategy. So working with different partners, getting articles published in publications, building that authority. And I wanted to quickly note too, is when you're writing stories and pitching stories to publications and websites to share your content, think about their audience. How are you adding value to their audience? I think very often we write product pitches of like, hey, I have this new product and it's exciting, so I'm going to share it with everybody. But maybe how does that new product solve a challenge in the market? Trying to write a little bit more about how does this help educate your audience can help again with that pitch. And then you're helping the publication of, hey, I don't need to worry about my content calendar because you just solved my problem there. So thinking again, how can I pitch stories that benefit us both? And yeah, I like to just throw out the word before it was Google, it was called Backrub. And then on the T side, trust. So trust quality over quantity. So again, I think back early internet, there was a lot of like, the more pages I have, the more opportunities that I can be found. And I said that a little bit earlier too with content, but I want to make sure that don't spread yourself too thin. If you're creating a lot of pages that just have one sentence on it, it might not be helping you. But if you're building a page that has a bunch of FAQ questions, for example, and it's a very long page and you're putting markup that says, here's the answer to that question, that's a better use than trying to create 20 pages that have like a few words on it. We don't want shallow content. We want deep, rich information. And also, once that person answers that question, I'm sure they have another one. So being able to continue that journey and create internal links to what you ultimately want them to do. Maybe it's buy, maybe it's contact you, but how are you starting that conversation and then creating a pathway for them to reach out to you, the expert, that you've built this authority expertise. So you want to drive them to that conversation and have that conversion. So I also like to throw out here is, again, make sure that you're aware. I think we all have experienced this in some way, that like you get a lot of spam and people outreaching and saying, I can help make millions of impressions. Always try to vet these things out. Ask somebody, hey, again, this is a great network too, where you can ask and say, has anyone heard of this? Has anybody seen success with it? Unfortunately, definitely with COVID, I've noticed a lot more small businesses getting targeted by some of these scams. So I would definitely just say, keep your radar up on that. Ask questions. I always like to counter too, when somebody says, pay me $50 and I'll reshare your posts. I'll say, great. What are your stats? What can I do this for free first? Like, ask probing questions. And usually sometimes too that I get from that is that it suddenly turns from this canned response that looked very professional into a very scattered conversation. And it makes me realize, okay, this is not as trustworthy or reliable as I thought it was. So anyway, just sharing that. Also with all of these backlinks, building the trust in who you're partnering with and where you want to link to is also very important, because again, you're just building these relationships that can refer to you. So you want to make sure that you're picking the good ones. And I threw a little picture of a penguin in here because that was the Google update that essentially just cracked down on all of these websites. So again, back in the day of SEO, backlinks was great. So everybody just bought a ton of backlinks from all of these parked sites and no value. And people gained rankings temporarily. I think it was 2014, they restructured this algorithm to sniff out all of that, people who were trying to cheat. And that was what we call the penguin update. So throw a little penguin in there. And generally, hopefully this is all kind of common knowledge at this point, but that's a little history too behind. Also, if you're acquiring a website that was prior to in like 2010 created and it has all of these bad links, you can also see who's linking to you, and you can disavow in Google Search Console. So you can say, I don't want this person linked to me. So good ways to also just to troubleshoot if you are encountering or adopting a website that has done shady practices in the past. And then lastly, I have earn your audience. So earned media is content that is yours. Again, you're writing this unique piece of content. And the nice thing about that, yes, it takes time, but in the end, it's yours. And it's yours to share. It's yours on your website is how you are getting traffic to you. And that is a great, and I say free, but it's also, there's time, and time is money. So there is an investment of time into it, but you don't have to necessarily focus on the advertising, the amplification, the trying to get your visibility. You're just creating this content. And then the nice thing is when you start having people subscribe is now and also with the Vermont Collaborative Circle, once people are part of this community, well, now you have permission to talk to each other. And think of it that way too, when you're getting subscribers, is that they are saying, hey, I like you enough that I'm willing to get your emails. So I always like to say, make it count, make it relevant, make it something that is going to be something that they want to open and get excited about. And it's a unique maybe offer, update, use your email strategy to grow your audience of your earned audience. And then how do I know it's working? There's tools for that, which is great. So we have Google Search Console, and the Bing version is Bing Webmasters. You can register your properties in there. And properties website. You can register your website, and then you can start to see everything before I hit my website. What are the search queries and where do I show up? So you can see your average position for a certain query, see what page is ranking for that keyword, and then be able to say, okay, well, actually, that keyword probably makes more sense to go to this page. How do I optimize that page for this search query? Or how do I repurpose? And this is where the optimization stuff comes in. Once you do it, it's not like it's one and done. You have to revisit, look at the metrics, see where your impressions, your clicks, understand what posts and content is driving volume, and then start to learn from it and try to rework the things that aren't working as well, either by repurposing them or combining content. Constantly just be looking at these numbers of what's working, what's not, what's generating clicks, what's generating visibility, and grow upon that over time. So ideally, every page that you have ranks for something on the first page. Not always the case, but at least you can understand, okay, if I'm in the 40th position, I have an option here. I can either invest more time into this page to try and make it sing and bring it to the first page, or I can just get rid of it because it's not doing me any favors. It's just taking up more time on my website. So I always like to throw that out there too, is Google has a crawl budget. So, it only wants to spend so much time on your website anyway. So it wants to provide relevance that's going to answer questions of their users. So the more relevant that you can be and understanding what is those search terms that are driving traffic to my website, this is just a great way to see that visibility and to be able to troubleshoot if you have an index issue. So if your website's not showing up, you can also figure out why it might not be showing up. So that is one of my favorite tools, and it's free to use, is register with Google Search Console and Bing Webmasters to understand your search traffic. And then Google Analytics, another free tool that collects aggregated data from your website visitors. So Google Search Console, before your website, how are you getting found? Google Analytics, once they're there, what do they do? And so you can see, one of my favorite reports is the acquisition and seeing what channels are driving revenue, what channels are driving engagement, which channels am I getting traffic from? So this can just also be helpful to understand, where are you getting value? Where are you getting the profitable audience? So for example, too, if you're spending a lot of time on Instagram and Instagram's not necessarily converting for you, well, another thing that you could also look at Google Analytics and Search Console is, does your brand search queries, are people searching for your brand more often from these activities? There's just more data to be able to quantify, to say, what is growing my business right now? What is working? And this is just a great way to see all of the channels coming together onto your website and see where should I invest more time? What's working? What's not working? How do I drill down and diagnose how I can grow? And then I did a talk before and somebody was like, okay, threw a lot at me. So I'm getting towards the end. And I wanted to say, here's some bullet points of where to get started. Do some research. That's always my first go-to, is start to understand, what does this search market look like? Look at your competitors. What are they doing? What keywords are they ranking for? How can you speak to it more effectively and better? That's always a good way is thinking about that, but understanding, what is this market layout look like? And you can either do some keyword research, looking through Google Ads. They have a keyword planner for volume. SEMrush, I believe it's only a paid subscription in order to access that. But there's another tool that I've recently loved called SparkToro. Rand Fishkin, formerly from Moz.com, recently launched this, and it's such a cool tool. You just say, my audience is talking about X, shopping local. Great. Here's all of the websites. Here's all the hashtags. Here's all the Twitter accounts. Here's where these people live on the internet. That is huge and really revolutionary, because again, it's thinking a little bit beyond just the search market, off of Google, off of Bing. Like, where do people live on the web? What websites do they visit? And then that can be very helpful too with your looking to pitch stories to publications. You can use that to say, oh yeah, a lot of people who search for this, visit this website, I'm going to pitch my stories to this website and build my authority in that space. So again, it's just really cool. There's lots of tools out there in the digital marketing world, but some of these work very well together based on what you're trying to build. Next on my to-do list is plan what you want to write. And then again, think about what is your narrative? How are you speaking uniquely to this audience and authoritatively, authentically, and think too about like, what's the journey that you're setting for your customers? Oftentimes people are just like buy it at the very forefront. And maybe it might take some time for somebody to buy it. They want to learn. I'm just looking at my laptop right now. They want to learn a little bit more about like, what are the capacity, like what is the specs? What are the information that I need to know? What's the support look like? What's the resolution? Can I run a meeting through this laptop? You know, there's questions that people might have before they purchase. So think too about like, you might not want to just shove it in people's faces at first. You want to provide some educational content that links to a place where you can convert. So thinking too about the customer journey. I also make some assumptions about your audience to create personas. And again, this could be a whole other workshop, but addressing your audience. It's so much easier to think and bundle and envision who you are talking to, and trying to think about what are their individual concerns, because there may be somebody who might shop for your product very differently if they have a problem versus they don't have a problem. You know, think about what are your personas and who are you speaking to, because again, it'll just make the conversation so much lighter to kind of envision who you're speaking with. Throwing out there too, Vermont Collaborative Circle, collaborate with complementary businesses that can organically expand your reach. And I've seen some great networking opportunities that this community has had, and collaborations where you are promoting each other's businesses and you're tapping into each other's audiences to grow each other. So it's just a really great strategy. I've seen it happening a lot more during the COVID stretch too, of people just trying to figure out how do we get through this together. So that's been really encouraging and exciting to see, because it also provides more of a service offering to your clients. You have more to offer. So it's just a really cool and organic way to expand your audience and reach. Then create Google Analytics and Search Console. Takes very little time to set up. Always say, collect the data. You might not know what to do with it on day one because there is no data. But, you know, in 6 months, you can track and say, hey, I've been writing a blog post every single month. Is my traffic going up? Okay, which one of these blog posts that I've written over the past 6 months is doing the best? Okay, let me figure out why. So just set those properties up today. Even if you don't know what to do with them for 6-12 months, it's just good to have this information collecting in the backgrounds for you to evaluate down the line. And then lastly, I threw in here too is a Google My Business page. So if you are working on branding, so either you want to control your brand search, somebody searches for your brand. This is that little information on the right-hand side panel that shows about the product, or sorry, the company, the hours, maybe some new updates. And so I like to say, just create one, like you're securing your brand space. When somebody searches for that, you get to control the message. And so I think that that's just another really easy, free way to be able to, just be able to control that messaging. And then it also allows you to show up on Google Maps and can show up in the discovery feed, which is on Android. So there's a few other opportunities that you can be found through that as well. But I just like it because you better claim your spot. And if somebody's searching for you, you can control what it is that you want to say. And then that gets me to the end. I have a few more links too of anybody who wants to learn more. The periodic table of SEO factors by Search Engine Land is kind of my gospel. It is what I like to use to just kind of understand and break down what are all of the important factors of search. And I've covered for the most part all as much as I can. But yes, this is a full industry, constantly changing. So yeah, these tips that I shared with you today are some of the more important factors. But yeah, creating that story narrative, thinking of your website too as a book. Your homepage is your book cover, and your appendix or all of the table of contents, that's your navigation. All of those pages that you're creating are your chapters. So thinking about it too is like, how are you creating this full educational experience? And like, why, like your homepage, why would I buy this book? How are you grabbing that attention? That also kind of clicked to me one day where I was just like, oh, yeah, that's very easy now to understand how my website should be laid out. Now that I'm thinking about it as what is my website is my book. What does my book cover say? So yeah, that was a lot of long-winded, but I think I hit the mark on 12:30.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, there's so much to dig into. I know I have questions. I'd love for people, if you're confident and feel comfortable, feel free to pop on to ask your question on video, or just use the audio. But I'd love to hear what questions folks have, and ways that we can continue the conversation. Erika is available. She has shared her email. I put that in the chat, Erika@erikaaustin.com. And I hope that you'll reach out with her and make that connection. Just to warm it up, I had a question. You talked about crawl budgets, and it made me wonder how deep a website should go versus, what the scope of content should be, and how to stay within that crawl budget.
Yeah, that's a great question. So crawl budget too. I also just wanted to say that like some of that can be duplicate content, right? So like if you have pages that basically say the same thing, like, well, why would Google or anybody want to see that page twice? So that can also be like your URL should be unique. And yeah, I've also seen like there's lots of different variations of the same page, and they all get indexed, and that could be not so great. Or it's serving the same content under a different URL. That's another thing that can cause problems. In general, in terms of like you were saying, the click depth, I would say about 3. There's no magic number necessarily. And again, if you're creating that depth of, okay, here's a blog, and here's the blog about this recipe. So blog recipes with chicken, and it could keep on going, but try and think of how do you more effectively organize it, and think too about your user experience. If somebody has to click like 20 clicks to get to the information, you probably lost them along the way. So it's just easier to kind of keep it about 3 clicks.
That's really helpful. Do you use any specific tools for that customer mapping experience, or do you have suggestions if people are thinking about, what the path that persona is going through, how they should plan for that in the way they design their website?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because I've been wanting to build out more templates like this and share it with the community, because I am a spreadsheet geek. I love just writing like all of my columns of either date of publication, what are their metrics, how do I revisit this? I do everything in sheets, from planning to evaluation. So yeah, there's some really great resources or once I have the template, I could share it and that can help.
That's great.
Cool. Is anybody else from the crowd got a question?
I can keep going, but
okay.
I want to give everyone the opportunity.
I've got a question.
Hey.
You talked about, optimizing for the user experience and, 3 clicks. What do you do if you have a situation where you have a company website that doesn't follow those principles, and it's going to be like moving Mount Everest to redo it?
Mm-hmm.
What's the strategy to get on track?
Yeah. Actually, I'm working with a client right now on this where they have a lot of content. But when I started to, I use Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog is a website crawler tool that you can crawl the entire website, and you can connect to an API and see Google Analytics, Search Console, see just like how Google would crawl your site, and then be able to pair that next to metrics. And then I start looking and saying, okay, like all of these pages in this directory aren't giving you any traffic. So does it make sense to just combine these, scrap it, rework that content? So I think first game plan would be with a large site like that is just trying to evaluate of what's working, what's not working. And then once you're able to quantify that with metrics and say, 50% or 80% of your website's only generating like 2% of your traffic, then I think it's very easy to pitch that to somebody and say, oh yeah, like that's weighing us down. So that's how I would do it. It's always data driven for me.
It sounds like a good spring cleaning opportunity for all of us.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat about any tips for CBD SEO.
That is a great question. I am still learning the CBD area myself. It's an evolving process right now in our state, and I think just nationally too, with payment processors. In terms of search engine opportunities, I would speak to a lot of different things around CBD. What is CBD? How does it help? What challenges does it address? What kind of how do you use it? How does it work? What's the difference between CBD and CBG? Like there's a lot of different ways, again, thinking about that answer to the public, like who, what, why, when, where, how, questions that you can start to think about to educate your audience about CBD. I know me personally, I don't know that much about it. So I would read those articles as well, trying to learn a little bit more about it. But I started off saying, I'm still trying to navigate because it seems like the payment processors and e-commerce CBD seems like it's in its own little category. And I'm still trying to navigate that because it's very much evolving. So I don't necessarily know, well, we're all figuring that out, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
You're not alone. Yeah. I have another question. So I write a blog post every week, and keywords are probably like the last thing that I think about. I am really guilty of being like, well, I don't know what's a key, like just take a whole paragraph and then stuff it in as the SEO words. Is there a website that can read what I've written and then crunch it down? Is there some tool that can tell me what my search words are after I've written it? Or am I just doing the process totally backwards? Should I start with a keyword and write the post from there?
So I would say my answer to that depends on what platform you're using. If you use WordPress, I would say Yoast.com or Yoast plugin app is a great tool where you just throw in the key phrase and then it'll say, hey, you didn't mention this in your title or in your body of your copy, or you didn't mention enough time. So there's some great tools to be able to do that. But I think platform specific, Yoast I know is specific to WordPress. But I can probably give some examples too after this, thinking through what other platforms there are. What platform are you on?
Squarespace.
Okay, Squarespace. Yeah, they don't offer that many add-on options. So there may be like a Google Docs add-on where you can be able to say, write it in Google Docs, put in a plugin to see, hey, does this work? But again, publish it and then revisit it in like a month, 2 months, 3 months and say, is this going anywhere? Is this getting any traffic? Was this an update that I just needed to provide at one point and then like doesn't make sense like 3 years later?
Can I retire it?
Yeah, exactly. So just revisit your content, I would say, is just keep going. If you also have the discipline to be writing once a week, keep going.
All right, thanks.
Anybody else?
For folks who are just starting out their business, are there tools that you suggest for naming your business or picking your domain? What should people be thinking about if they're starting fresh or launching something maybe they're changing what they have as an existing business. What are some things they should consider in the naming process?
I would always Google it. First and foremost, Google it. I have encountered some awkward conversations with people they launched this whole big product line and then realized, oh, my competitor has the exact same product name. Oops, I didn't Google it first. Or, oh, this is a really popular name in a completely different area. Well, it could go both ways. You could maybe be bringing in the wrong company's traffic, or so I would just say Google it first, see who else is there while you're coming up with ideas, just so that you're not getting into hot water in the end. And I also want to just warn is that I have noticed that any kind of like 2 words that are actually like good words. So I just created a blog. I call it Disco Vermont. It's about discovering what's great in Vermont. I'm bringing it to local Maverick. And when I contacted the domain provider for Discover Vermont, a lot of these domain providers have bought up all of these 2-word domains, and then they resell it for like $10,000 or something.
Isn't
like
that so frustrating?
So frustrating, versus like $20 for Disco Vermont. And I mean, I'm now like, Disco Vermont's a better name.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun, exactly. So just warning is that like it can be very expensive to buy a domain for like 2 words together. So it can be a little bit cheaper if you do want to kind of create a fanciful name.
That's helpful to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about your process and your offerings in terms of helping people assess where they are or transition? I know I personally have a few domains that I need to like group together or set a strategy for.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about your process and how folks can connect with you.
Yeah, I always just start every conversation with a discovery call of trying to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve and what you're looking to do. Most people are looking to grow, so that's good. You're in the right place. So depends if you're just starting out. I can help with setting up some of these properties that I had mentioned: Google Search Console, Google Analytics. Just setting up what are your text, and then being able to evaluate it down the road. And I want to start so that you can check in at any point on how you're to begin with. Have a website, and again, you're like, I've been doing this for a while, I'm just not growing at all. What's going on? I can be that second pair of eyes into Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and be able to diagnose with you and say, hey, this is where I'm seeing opportunities. Let's figure out a way to get that page to speak to your offering. So I can help map out the journey as well. And then while that just sounds like way too much time to to invest into creating those properties and trying to understand them. That's where the efficiency of working with local Maverick comes in, is that they are connected to all these channels, so you'll automatically get all that distribution with providing more of that context. So that's what we're looking at right now, and I'm very excited about it because I feel it, the solopreneur, you're trying to do everything. It's a lot.
I hear you there. And I'm so glad that you've seen the opportunity to.
And then I guess lastly, I could share too, is that like any kind of audit.
Great. Okay. I'm in. Okay. I'm interested.
Cool.
I apologize. My internet is a little bit choppy, so if I drop off, you understand why. I very much want to be here right now. I am so grateful that you have mentioned so many different ways to collaborate and to leverage growth opportunities using collaboration, both with Local Maverick and with the Pivot and Thrive community. And I'm just so excited that you're involved in both, and so thankful, Erika, for you sharing your time and talent with us today so that we can continue to think with strategy in mind about how we grow our brand, how we extend our audience, and develop skills and understand analytics and use tools to help us work with the systems that are in place that can help us grow our business online. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. It really is just a pleasure to have you. And I hope that everyone will reach out. We dropped some information in the chat. So if you click the little ellipses, the 3 dots there, you can save the chat and you'll have that contact information. Janti says, great information, Erika. Looking forward to connecting with you. I'm just so grateful for everyone spending the time today. Thank you. On Thursday, we have another workshop with Rachel Fitch of Pinnacle Leadership. And we are going to be talking about resilience. This is a little bit funny because we had this scheduled in March and my internet failed. And we are resiliently coming back together on Thursday. And I hope you'll join us for that workshop. I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to say. And then in the next few weeks, we have a number of really great workshops talking about telling your story, there we go. I thought I got cut off.
Nope.
Talking about telling your story and creating an umbrella brand, and lots of different resources for connecting and growing your business. We have a wellness fair coming up at the end of April and start of May. And there are just so many exciting ways to collaborate and grow your business. And I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for sharing the time. And I hope we have a few members of the Pivot and Thrive community. And if you're not already a member, I hope you give it a try. Thank you so much for joining us, Erika. It's just a pleasure to learn with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Erika.
Bye. And I'll shoot some links in the Pivot and Thrive community too of that I covered in here, just so that people can quickly access. And
fantastic. Yeah, I'd love to have maybe even like a night school version of how to read my analytics and start studying this with you. I appreciate what you have to share. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a fantastic day and enjoy the sunshine.